morning, Park family. We have so much to celebrate as we move towards 100 years of faith. And not only are we celebrating 100 years of faith as a Park Church, but in the history of America, we have celebrated 50 years after the Civil Rights Movement. And I'm blessed to be here with Adrian Vaugh's father, Dr. Jesse Douglas, who played a significant role in the Civil Rights Movement. In fact, he actually worked with Dr. Martin Luther King, and it's been a pleasure already sitting here talking to him. And I just want to thank you, Dr. Douglas, for spending time with us today and just hearing how God was using you during an era when our people really needed men of God to stand and be strong. Tell us a little bit about how was it for you growing up in America, dealing with some of the challenges that you faced growing up?
Well, as you know, segregation was running rampant in the South. And I'm a native of Louisiana, New Orleans, Louisiana.
Oh, wow.
And of course, it was no different there. Everything was, segregated schools. As a matter of fact, I attended a trade school where they felt that black people only needed to, to learn how to do things with their hands, mechanic and pressing and printing presses and stuff like that. All of my education was acquired through scholarship, both academic and talent-wise. I never had any money because I came from a very poor family. My father was a disabled veteran from World War I. My mother did domestic work, working in a white folks' kitchen for $6 a week.
$6 a week. Wow.
6 days a week.
Wow. Can you tell us about, you said you were at the march as we come up on the 50th anniversary in '63. Yes, sir. Can you talk about what was that day like when you were there?
Oh, man. The press said it was $250,000. It was much more than they said it was. But it was a very exciting day, and it was very crowded, very peaceful, though. Everybody was amazed at it. A lot of planning had gone into that march, and we had the cooperation of a lot of people, both high-ups as well as on a local levels to make it run so smoothly. But it was a very exciting. It was a time when the nation's minority and poor took a stand, for themselves to let Washington know of their dissatisfactions. And this reiteration of the '63 march on Saturday in Washington was to re-emphasize the needs that were then are still in existence, and that we still need liberation. The check that Dr. King spoke of in his message that came back, insufficient funds,
yes, sir.
That check needs to be sent back and tell them we want you to honor it,
yes,
because
sir.
we still have not received our just rights and benefits. There's still inequities all over. But the thing is, I think disunity in the black community is one of our greatest weaknesses. And I think it's a slave mentality that was passed on from our ancestors, being subjected to slavery for so many years, that blacks shouldn't trust one another.
Yes, sir. What would you say to young adults? What would you say to us during this present age right now?
I would say learn to love one another. It's the greatest force on earth. Jesus said in his 11th commandment before he ascended into heaven, I want you to love one another as I have loved you. And if you have love one to another, then all men will know that you are my disciples if you have love one for another. God is love, and Jesus Christ was the epitome of love. And if we are to move ahead, we've got to learn to love each other, not because of, but in spite of.
So, Dr. Douglas, you talked about Dr. King's favorite song. What was that, and would you mind singing a few bars of that for us?
I told Jesus it would be all right if you changed my name. I told Jesus it would be all right if he changed my name. I told Jesus It would be all right if he changed my name. Oh, I told Jesus it would be all right if he changed my name.
Once again, thank you. We praise God for the blessing and the opportunity that we had to hear from you. And we thank God for the sacrifices that you've made for my liberties and others' liberties that we take advantage of on a daily basis. And Park family, as we move towards 100 years, we as a church, we have to continue the legacy that God has given us through great leaders like the Reverend Dr. Douglas. God has called us to be not only the example of the gospel, but we have to be active living the gospel. And there's still yet more work for us to do, yet more lives for us to touch, yet more things that God has called us to do to make an impact in this world, because we have been called to be the salt of the earth and the light of the world. And if you lose your saltiness, then it's good for nothing but to be trampled on by men. The church that God has allowed us to be a part of is not designed to be trampled on by men, but we're designed to make an impact on the community, to extend ourselves beyond ourselves,
as lights,
that we might be the light of the world that God has called us to be. Let's continue to do what God has called us to do and see what God do exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ever ask or even think. And there will be yet another generation who will look at us and say, thank you for doing what God has called you to do. Thank you, Dr. Douglas. Look forward to talking to you again. God bless you, Park family.